Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to have another look at Thus Spake Zarathustra. Oh, I dreamed about my death. I was falling down a well and hit my head on a stone. Well, hopefully that does not happen. Let's read a book. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. We're about a third of the way through, but for now let's concentrate on where we are at. 3. Backworldsmen. Once on a time, Zarathustra also cast his fancy beyond man. Like all backworldsmen, the work of a suffering and tortured god, did the world then seem to me. The dream and diction of a god, did the world then seem to me, coloured vapours before the eyes of a divinely dissatisfied one. Good and evil, and joy and woe, and I and thou, coloured vapours did they seem to me before creative eyes. The Creator wished to look away from himself. Thereupon he created the world. Intoxicating joy is it for the sufferer to look away from his suffering and forget himself. Intoxicating joy and self-forgetting did the world once seem to me. This world, the eternally imperfect, an eternal contradiction's image, an imperfect image, an intoxicating joy to its imperfect creator. Thus did the world once seem to me. Thus, once on a time, did I also cast my fancy beyond man, like all backworldsmen. Beyond man, forsooth. Ah, ye brethren, that God whom I created was human work and human madness, like all the gods. A man was he, and only a poor fragment of a man and ego. Out of mine own ashes and glow it came unto me, the phantom. And verily, it came not unto me from the beyond. What happened, my brethren? I surpassed myself, the suffering one. I carried mine own ashes to the mountain. A brighter flame I contrived for myself, and lo, thereupon the phantom withdrew from me. To me, the convalescent would it now be suffering and torment to believe in such phantoms. Suffering would it now be to me, and humiliation. Thus speak I to backworldsmen. Suffering was it, and impotence, that created all backworlds, and the short madness of happiness, which only the greatest sufferer experienceth. Weariness, which seeketh to get to the ultimate with one leap, with a death leap, a poor ignorant weariness, unwilling even to will any longer, that created all gods and backworlds. Believe me, my brethren, it was the body which despaired of the body. It groped with the fingers of the infuriated spirit at the ultimate walls. Believe me, my brethren, it was the body which despaired of the earth. It heard the bowels of existence in speaking unto it. And then it sought to get through the ultimate walls with its head, and not with its head only, into the other world. But that other world is well concealed from man, that dehumanized, inhuman world, which is a celestial naught, and the bowels of existence do not speak unto man, except as man. Verily, it is difficult to prove all being, and hard to make it speak. Tell me, ye brethren, is not the strangest of all things best proved? Yea, this ego, with its contradiction and perplexity, speaketh most uprightly of its being, this creating, willing, evaluing ego, which is the measure and value of things. And this most upright existence, the ego, it speaketh of the body, and still implieth the body, even when it museth and raveth, and fluttereth with broken wings. Always more uprightly learneth it to speak, the ego, and the more it learneth, the more doth it find titles and honours for the body and the earth. A new pride taught me mine ego, and that teach I unto men, no longer to thrust one's head into the sand of celestial things, but to carry it freely, a terrestrial head, which giveth meaning to the earth. A new will teach I unto men, to choose that path which man hath followed blindly, and to approve of it, and no longer to slink aside from it, like the sick and perishing. The sick and perishing, it was they who despised the body and the earth, and invented the heavenly world, and the redeeming blood drops. But even those sweet and sad poisons they borrowed from the body and the earth. From their misery they sought escape, and the stars were too remote for them. Then they sighed, "Oh, that there were heavenly paths by which to steal into another existence and into happiness." Then they contrived for themselves their bypaths and blood drafts. Beyond the sphere of their body and this earth, they now fancied themselves transported, these ungrateful ones. But to what did they owe the convulsion and rapture of their transport? To their body and this earth. Gentle is Zarathustra to the sickly. Verily, he is not indignant at their modes of consolation and ingratitude. May they become convalescents and overcomers, and create higher bodies for themselves. Neither is Zarathustra indignant at a convalescent who looketh tenderly on his delusions, and at midnight stealeth round the grave of his God. But sickness and a sick frame remain even in his tears. Many sickly ones have there always been among those who muse and languish for God. Violently they hate the discerning ones, and the latest of virtues, which is uprightness. Backward they always gaze toward dark ages. Then, indeed, were delusion and faith something different. Raving of the reason was likeness to God, and doubt was sin. Too well do I know those godlike ones. They insist on being believed in, and that doubt is sin. Too well, also, do I know what they themselves most believe in. Verily, not in backworlds and redeeming blood drops, but in the body do they also believe most, and their own body is for them the thing in itself. But it is a sickly thing to them, and gladly would they get out of their skin. Therefore, hearken they to the preachers of death, and themselves preach backworlds. Hearken rather, my brethren, to the voice of the healthy body. It is a more upright and pure voice. More uprightly and purely speaketh the healthy body, perfect and square-built, and it speaketh of the meaning of the earth. Thus spake Zarathustra. 4. The despisers of the body. To the despisers of the body will I speak my word. I wish them neither to learn afresh, nor teach anew, but only to bid farewell to their own bodies, and thus be dumb. Body am I, and soul, so saith the child. And why should one not speak like children? But the awakened one, the knowing one, saith, Body am I entirely, and nothing more, and soul is only the name of something in the body. The body is a big sagacity, a plurality with one sense, a war and a peace, a flock and a shepherd. An instrument of thy body is also thy little sagacity. I can't not say that word. Sagacity, maybe. It might be sagacity. My brother, which thou callest spirit, a little instrument and plaything of thy big sagacity. Ego, sayest thou, and art proud of that word. But the greater thing, in which thou art unwilling to believe, is thy body, which with its big sagacity, it saith not ego, but doeth it. I have to say, this particular book has had a lot of words that I've struggled with. What the sense feeleth, what the spirit discerneth, hath never its end in itself. But sense and spirit would fain persuade thee that they are the end of all things, so vain are they. Instruments and playthings are sense and spirit. Behind them there is still the self. The self seeketh with the eyes of the senses. It hearkeneth also with the ears of the spirit. Ever hearkeneth the self, and seeketh it compareth, mastereth, conquereth, and destroyeth. It ruleth, and it is also the ego's ruler. Behind thy thoughts and feelings, my brother, there is a mighty Lord, an unknown sage. It is called self. It dwelleth in thy body. It is thy body. There is more sagacity in thy body than in thy best wisdom. And who then knoweth why thy body requireth just thy best wisdom? Thy self it's all these apologies. But thy self laugheth at thine ego and its proud prancings. What are these prancings and flights of thought unto me? It saith to itself, a byway to my purpose. I am the leading string of the ego, and the prompter of its notions. The self saith unto the ego, feel pain, and thereupon it suffereth, and thinketh how it may put an end thereto, and for that very purpose it is meant to think. The self saith unto the ego, feel pleasure, thereupon it rejoiceth, and thinketh how it may oft times rejoice, and for that very purpose it is meant to think. To the despisers of the body will I speak a word. That they despise is caused by their esteem. What is it that created esteeming and despising, and worth and will? The creating self created for itself esteeming and despising. It created for itself joy and woe. The creating body created for itself spirit, as a hand to its will. Even in your folly and despising ye each serve yourself, ye despisers of the body. I tell you, your very self wanteth to die and turneth away from life. No longer can your self do that which it desireth most, create beyond itself. That is what it desireth most. That is all its fervour. But it is now too late to do so. So your self wisheth to succumb, ye despisers of the body. To succumb, so wiseth yourself, and therefore have ye become despisers of the body. For ye can no longer create beyond yourselves, and therefore are ye now angry with life and with the earth, and unconscious envy is in the sidelong look of your contempt. I go not your way, ye despisers of the body. Ye are no bridges for me to the Superman. Thus spake Zarathustra. I think I'm going to leave it there, because those words are really taxing my tongue, which is a strange sentence in itself. And because it is 9 o'clock and I need to get this done and edited and such. But it was partly because I was out having a nice meal with my dad on his birthday, which is why I'm so late with this. But what can you do? Spend time with the family. That's what must be done. So I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed the read. I hope you enjoyed me struggling with some of the words. I still don't know what that word was. Sagacity? I honestly don't know how it's pronounced, but it's an annoying word to say. Nevertheless, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me today, and have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night, no matter what time of day it is. Have a wonderful one of it, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.